Hello and welcome to the EL Library Read Aloud of Nightbooks by J.A. White, read with permission from HarperCollins Publishers. So today we are on chapter 10 of Nightbooks, and it's getting good. The story is getting really interesting. We're going to review a little bit because to recap what happened on Friday, because it's been the weekend. Remember that the links to the YouTube EL Library web YouTube channel are right on Facebook and Instagram every day, so you can either catch up or re-listen to any of the chapters that you might have missed. So chapter 9 on Friday, Alex's life, he's kind of settling into his apartment life in 4E. Kind of a predictable routine. During the day, he pretends to write in the library while combing the stacks for more entries written by the Unicorn Girl. At night, he continues to read to Natasha, of course, but he's kind of growing lonely. He misses his family. Days pass. He continues to search the library, tells his stories, dreams of escaping. He has, since the last time, found 6 other entries by the mysterious girl, and he's trying to put them in some kind of chronological order, and he's able to do that because the last one that he found read, I escaped tonight, everything is set. So he believes the end of the story might be somewhere in that library, so that's why he's kind of searching in desperation for more entries by the Unicorn Girl. Meanwhile, Yasmin is in a mess. She comes to Alex for help. She needs help back in the coat closet where she works. She instructs Alex to get some gloves, that she's going to bring the goggles. And they escape into the closet where Alex has never been. So let's see. Alex goes into the closet. There's no light at all. He can't believe his eyes because it's like a phosphorescent garden, a neon forest hidden at the center of the earth. Yasmin explains that it's a witch's nursery with plants that are meant to grow at night. These plants make essential oils, which is what's popular now. She tells him that not potions. Nobody wants potions anymore, so it's all about essential oils. And that her job is to take care of all of the plants and make sure that they do not die. Except she has made a terrible mistake. She has mistakenly fed a snapping vine rat's blood instead of bat's blood, and now the plant is quite sick. She does know how to fix it, but she can't do it on her own. She needs Alex's help, so that's why she's bringing Alex into the closet. So that's where chapter 9 left off. Chapter 10, I will warn you, is kind of gross and a little creepy, to say the least. But here we start on chapter 10, and the title of the chapter is called Danglers. So chapter 10, Danglers. They walked between a series of long tables, their way lit by glowing plants. Alex passed a neon green flower with tooth-like petals that snapped at him as he passed, a miniature tree no bigger than a marble, and a perfect red rose that Yasmin warned him was the most dangerous thing in the entire nursery. Alex supposed that he should have been scared, but mostly he was just excited. He couldn't help it. Creepy plants were awesome. At last, Yasmin stopped walking. "This is it," she said. Alex followed her gaze to a tall trellis that had been erected on the opposite side of the tables. Vines twisted up, over, and between the diamond-shaped spaces, their colors bright against the darkness. Some were spiky. Others had thorns. One yellow vine hung lower than the rest, as though weighted down. Along its bottom dangled dozens of tiny sacks, about the size of golf balls. Alex caught a whiff of something foul. "That the vine?" he asked, holding his nose. "Yeah," Yasmin said. "It's gotten worse. We have to hurry." "You have something we can cut it down with?" Yasmin scoffed. "If it was that easy, I would have done it myself," she said. "Look, you see this?" She leaned over the tabletop and pointed to one of the sacks hanging from the underside of the vine. It's a dangler. They grow on sick plants, the magic kind at least, like an infection. This poor vine's got them everywhere now. Alex leaned over the edge of the table for a closer look. The thin skin of the sack was pulled taut over a black shape, like a chrysalis. "What's inside?" he asked. "It could be anything," Yasmin said. "I've only seen 2 danglers actually open. The first one was just a regular old spider. The second one," she fiddled with her cap, "I don't like to talk about the second one. Luckily, we got it right away." "We?" Alex asked, surprised. "Natasha actually helped?" Yasmin gave him a curt nod and continued. She seemed eager to change the topic as quickly as possible. "Right now, the thing inside this dangler is just chillin'," she said, sucking up plant juice. "We cut down the vine, though, and it's like taking a bottle away from a baby. It'll wake up. They'll all wake up." Alex jumped in surprise as the sack in front of him suddenly twitched, causing a chain reaction that continued all the way down the vine, like a string of lights caught in the wind. "If we can't cut down the vine," he said, "then what do we do?" "Remove each and every dangler," Yasmin said, "one at a time. If we're careful enough, whatever's growing inside the dangler won't realize that it's been cut off from its food, at least for the first minute or 2. That's more than enough time to kill it." Alex examined the sack in front of him. It dangled slightly from the vine on a purplish strand, like a fruit on its stem. If you managed to twist it just right, it looked like it would come off. Still, he couldn't imagine touching the fragile-looking skin without the entire thing bursting in his hand. "If the dangler breaks," he started. "Then the thing wakes up instantly," Yasmin said. "In your hands. Not a good thing." "My hands?" Alex asked. "Don't worry," Yasmin said. "I'll take care of the hard part. You just have to... Here, I'll show you." She handed him a pair of cacti that glowed like phosphorescent coral, and then took 2 of her own. Alex followed her the lengths of 3 tables until they reached a tiny metal door on the floor. Yasmin placed the cacti around the door like work lights, and then lifted it by a curved handle, revealing a hole filled with swirling darkness. "I'll hand you the dangler," Yasmin said. "You throw it into the void here." "The void?" "It's magic," Yasmin said. "There are a few of them in the nursery. The one closest to the door is where I take the trash out every day. Basically, this is the world's greatest garbage chute. You drop something down there, it's gone forever. So, don't stick your hand in." "I don't think you have to worry about that," Alex said, taking a cautious step back from the hole. They returned to the beginning of the vine. Lenore was waiting for them. The cat had found a good spot and settled in, confident that something was going to go terribly wrong and wanting to have the best view possible when it happened. "Stay put," Yasmin told Alex. "I'll twist the dangler off and hand it to you." "How do I make sure the sack doesn't break?" Alex asked, wishing he had found better gloves. "Be gentle," Yasmin said, "like when someone blows bubbles and you catch one on the tip of your finger." "They always pop when I do that." "Okay," she said, not encouraging, "but that's cool. How about this? Hold your hands together like cupping water. Only the water might eat you if you drop it." Alex did as she asked. His hands only trembled a little. "Perfect," Yasmin said, though she didn't look very confident. "We better get started. Try to go as fast as possible, but not too fast. Make sure you don't trip, and maybe don't breathe too much. Also, the danglers sometimes move, so be ready for that." "Anything else?" Alex asked between gritted teeth. "Nope, that about covers it." Yasmin climbed onto the rickety table. It wobbled beneath her weight. "Shouldn't you be wearing gloves too?" Alex asked. "Need my fingers free. she said. "This takes a delicate touch." Yasmin reached up and pinched the spot where the sack joined the vine between her thumb and index fingers. Then she twisted gently. The sack resisted at first, but finally came free, sliding into Yasmin's palm like an egg yolk. She rushed it to Alex's waiting hands. Even through the thick gloves, he could feel the heat of the dangler, warm with life. He carried it as quickly as he could to the hole in the floor. Just as he was about to open his hands, Alex felt the small shape inside the amber fluid twitch suddenly, as though it had just woken up. He dropped it. The darkness swirled faster for just a moment, as though swallowing, and then the dangler was gone. "See?" Yasmin said with a crooked smile. "Easy." They shared a look. There was something different between them now, a link that hadn't been there before. For the first time, they were acting as a team. They moved on to the next one. Hours ticked by to the steady rhythm of work. Twist, pull, walk, drop. Twist, pull, walk, drop. The danglers came in all shapes and sizes. Most were insectoid in nature, but Alex occasionally glimpsed fur and teeth through the thin sacks. Every so often, a dangler shifted in his hands, usually at the last moment, as if sensing what was coming. After nearly losing his hold on one, Alex began to cup them beneath his hands, like trapping a firefly. He even did this with the danglers that were little more than squishy ooze, though he suspected that these ones hadn't grown correctly and would never wake up at all. Into the void they went. By mid-afternoon, 2/3 of the vine had been cleared. With their goal now in sight, Yasmin grew even more focused. Alex's energy, on the other hand, had begun to flag. His stomach grumbled, and his hands itched like crazy from the gloves. Nevertheless, he refused to suggest a break. He wanted to prove to Yasmin that she could rely on him. "We need to work together," he thought. "Share what we know. That's our best chance of getting out of here." As they neared the end of their task, however, he wondered if he was kidding himself. Is Yasmin helping today going to actually change anything? She hadn't said a word to him in hours. What happens if things go back to the way they were after this? What if she refuses to talk to me? He couldn't let that happen. This might be his only chance to convince her that they were on the same side. "I should tell her about Unicorn Girl," he thought. "I just have to make sure that Lenore doesn't overhear us. If Natasha finds out what I know, she might kick me out of the library. Or worse." He glanced over at the cat. For the first hour, she had tracked their every move. When it became clear that nothing interesting was going to happen, however, she placed her head on her paws and closed her eyes. Every so often, she would hiss in her sleep and flicker in and out of visibility. "Yasmin," Alex whispered as she walked along the tabletop, searching for the next dangler. "Can we talk?" She gave him an annoyed look, anxious to get the work done. "You need a break?" she asked. "Because Natasha's going to be back soon. We should push on." "That's not it," Alex said. "Then what?" He was just about to tell her when he took another sidelong glance at Lenore. She wasn't there anymore. He heard the tiniest creak of the table to his right, saw a pile of soil flatten as though pressed down by an invisible body. She's listening, Alex thought. She probably wasn't ever asleep at all. That was just a trick. Yasmin lifted her Met's cap and wiped the sweat from her forehead. "You ever been to City Field?" Alex asked awkwardly. He knew he couldn't talk about Unicorn Girl with Lenore around, and baseball had been the first topic that popped into his head. Yasmin gave him a strange look and then turned her attention to the sack dangling before her. Alex figured that was the end of it, that she would ignore this question just like every other question he had ever asked about her life before the apartment. After a few moments, however, she answered. Maybe she sensed, like Alex, that the silence needed to be filled in order to keep them sharp. Or maybe she's finally starting to trust me. We go on my birthday every year, Yasmin said. Left field bleachers. It's sort of a tradition. Cool, Alex said. We've been too. You're a Mets fan? Yasmin asked, with an actual glimmer of excitement. Not really. You like the Yankees? She asked. Judging from the look on her face, Yasmin found this prospect even more disgusting than the Danglers. Neither one, Alex replied. My brother's the sports fan. He's this big jock. His room, you walk in, and it's nothing but shiny trophies, like a dragon's hoard. An athletic dragon. John's pretty much a slob, except for his trophies. Those he keeps spotless. He has this special cleaning kit my mom got him when his football team won the championship. Yasmin nodded, half listening, while she positioned herself to twist off the next dangler. You like any sports at all? She asked. Not really, Alex said. John's always trying to get me to watch more football. He says it's good for me, like a vitamin or something. And then, when my attention wanders, because watching people go up and down a field a few feet at a time is really boring, he gets ticked off. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just like sports like a normal kid? Your brother sounds like a jerk, Yasmin said, grimacing. She was growing frustrated with the dangler. It wasn't twisting off as easily as the others. John isn't all bad, Alex said, suddenly feeling disloyal to his brother by speaking ill of him. Sometimes he watches old Twilight Zone episodes with me, and one time, when this kid was being mean to me at school... Alex trailed off, noticing that he had lost Yasmin's attention. How about you? He asked. You have any brothers or sisters? Yasmin opened her mouth about to answer, and then a startled look crossed her face. She glared at Alex with renewed mistrust. My family's none of your business, she snapped. How many times do I have to tell you? We're not friends. Yasmin turned her back toward Alex with a definitive spin of her heel. Apparently, their conversation was over. It took a lot to make Alex angry, but he felt it bubbling up inside him now. He was tired and hungry and suddenly feeling foolish for helping this girl in the first place. What's your problem? He asked. Right now, Yasmin replied, tugging cautiously on the vine. This dangler. It's stuck. I mean, your problem with me. Yasmin sighed and slowly twisted the dangler in a clockwise motion. I don't have a problem with you, Alex. Yeah, you do, he said. It was nice to let loose, stoke his anger into flames. You have from the start. I don't get it. We're on the same team. This, from the boy who hates sports. You know what I mean. We're both prisoners. Prisoners? Yasmin asked with a mocking half-smile. Last time I checked, you spend your days in a comfy library making up stories. Poor thing. I'm still trapped here, like you. His voice softened, the anger having run its course. You can trust me, Yasmin. I know exactly what you're going through. No, you do not, Yasmin screeched, her eyes suddenly filling with tears. You think, just because you've been here a week, you have any idea what it's like for me? You have no clue. It's all been so easy for you. In fact, you're probably having a blast, like you're the star in one of those stories you write. Only, you've never seen Natasha truly lose it like I have. You've never seen the horror in your friend's eyes as the magic starts to do its work and... As Yasmin talked, her attempt to detach the stubborn sack from the vine grew increasingly violent until she was twisting it from side to side with reckless abandon. Now it finally came free and immediately slipped out of her fingers, hitting the table with a solid plop. No! Yasmin exclaimed. 2 red pincers burst through the outer layer of the sack and dug into the wood, gaining purchase and dragging the rest of the body to freedom. Alex watched in disgust and fascination as dozens of bristly legs shook off the rest of the sack like an unwanted sleeping bag. It's a centipede, Alex thought, except It was more than that, of course. Centipedes didn't have legs that hummed and vibrated like the blades of an electric razor, nor did they have a periscopic eye dangling from the stalk in the center of their head. Yasmin brought her foot down, but the creature was too fast. It skittered along the tabletop, squeezing between pots and along leaves, its body undulating like a snake. As it moved, its vibrating legs spit sawdust into the air and left a long, shallow gouge in the tabletop. It passed over a fallen leaf and shredded it to nothing. Shredder, Alex thought, naming the creature in his head. Get it! Yasmin exclaimed. They sprinted toward the back of the nursery, Alex running alongside the table as Yasmin tracked their quarry up top, avoiding the other plants as best she could. When the shredder came close enough to the edge, Alex slammed his gloved fist down. He lifted his hand, hoping to see the bug guts smeared across the table. Nothing. Where'd it go? Yasmin asked. Alex shook his head. He had no idea. They both listened closely for any possible sound. Even Lenore joined them, ears perked, tiny monkey fingers protruding from her paws. Ready for action, Alex thought, with an unexpected feeling of affection for his foe. Finally, he heard a humming sound above him. Alex looked up just as a many-legged shadow skittered across the underside of the black lights, dusting the plants below with flecks of glass. There! Alex exclaimed, pointing up. It was too high for the children to reach, even standing on the tabletop. Not too high for Lenore, though. The cat hissed and leaped onto the trellis, clinging to it with her tiny fingers, and climbed upward. She wasn't an expert climber by any means. Slowly but surely, however, she made her way closer to the light fixture hanging from the ceiling. Not that I'm complaining, Alex said, but why is Lenore helping us? She's not, Yasmin said. She's protecting Natasha's plants. Works for me. They followed the shredder, trying to keep it in sight as it cut a yellow wire with its sharp legs. Electricity sparked in the air. The black lights flickered and then went out altogether. Without them, the plants instantly stopped glowing. They were plunged into darkness. Alex had never been afraid of the dark, but he had also never been in a magical nursery filled with scary plants and a razor-legged centipede before. That changed things. He ran to the nearest source of light, Yasmin by his side. The shredder followed them, dancing across the suspended metal hoods and finding the next yellow wire in no time at all. It was a quick learner. Another row of black lights went out, birthing a second pocket of darkness. They moved deeper into the nursery, away from the exit. We're going the wrong way, Alex said. It's okay, replied Yasmin. We can still fix this. Yasmin, if we don't, Natasha is going to be furious. That might be okay for you, storyteller, but not for me. I'm just a girl who waters the plants. I can be replaced. The suspended black lights creaked in protest as Lenore leaped onto them, landing gracefully on all four paws and immediately vanishing before their eyes. Alex could still track her progress, however, the lights creaked beneath her weight as the invisible cat stalked her prey. Lenore moved fast for her size. There was no way the centipede was going to make the next wire before 20 pounds of invisible cat caught her. Get ready, Alex said. If Lenore knocks it down, we can't let it get away this time. They heard a quiet hiss as though Lenore was getting ready to pounce. Before she could, however, the centipede abruptly changed directions and leaped back onto the trellis, landing on the sick vine. What's it doing? Alex wondered, noticing that it was running on the underside of the vine and not along the top. The first dangler fell, cut loose by those tiny, vibrating legs. And then the second, the third. It's cutting them all free. Alex realized with horror. Yasmin hopped on the table in one fluid motion, stepping on the first dangler before the sack even opened. By the time she got to the second one, 2 antennae had poked through the skin, their ends like prickly balls. It met a similar end beneath her sneaker. The third one managed to escape its sack entirely. Alex caught a glimpse of far too many eyes before slamming a potted plant on top of it. The shredder had already vanished into the darkness. The vine shook, and Alex heard tiny thumps as dangler after dangler fell to the table. Listening closely, he heard other sounds as well: scratching, clicking, slithering. Lenore, having finished a quick descent down the trellis, approached the sounds. Her back was arched. The black lights augmented her luminous green eyes. "Lenore," Alex said, "don't. There are too many. You'll get hurt." She looked at him askance, as though the concern in his voice had surprised her, and vanished. In the darkness, they heard a loud yowl as Lenore attacked. More sounds: hissing, a buzzing noise like a flying insect, a pot shattering. Lenore screeched in pain. Alex knew he shouldn't feel bad. The cat was his enemy, not his friend. But whether it was intentional or not, she was helping them right now. "I can't just let her die." He took a step toward the darkness, but Yasmin grabbed his arm and shook her head. "We need to help her," Alex said. "Lenore can take care of herself," Yasmin said. "You were right before. We should get out of here while we still can." The trellis shook as something crashed into it. Lenore hissed, and a chorus of foes replied in challenge: sharp chirps and angry chitters and high-pitched squeals. So many, Alex thought. Lenore started to hiss a second time, but then there was a snapping sound like a whip smacking concrete, followed by a large thump as something hit the ground. "Lenore?" Alex asked. He heard a sizzle of electricity, followed by a blinding flash. The lights went out. This time, it was all of them. Woo-hoo! And that is the end of Chapter 10. So thank you for joining in today on this Monday. We will hopefully have you listening in right back here tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, for Chapter 11 as our creepy story continues. So have a nice rest of your day, everyone, and hope to see you again tomorrow.